Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be joining us from. This is Jim McKeith, and thanks for joining us for today's CodeRage session. And this is the Tech Partner Roundup, Open Tools API, and Open Source. So you received an email with the playlist for this session in it, and that has a number of videos from our tech partners and MVPs and such. I will go ahead and put it in the chat window here again, just in case you did not receive it. And so today is your opportunity to ask questions from the presenters, and to otherwise we'll have a conversation about some of the topics that were discussed. I have a number of presenters online with us today. Actually, we'll just go ahead and start down the list here. Alan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Drennan. I'm a member at Grizzly, on the team at Grizzly. We're actually the ones that build the Grizzly Cloud Logger, which we actually produced a short video for CodeRage, as well as our deployment manager tool. These are two free tools that we provide, so we thought we'd tell the community about them and how they can help them develop. But we've been developing in Delphi. I've been developing in Delphi my entire career, ever since the first versions of it. I call it Delphi instead of Delphi, but we've been using it forever, and we continue to build new products and companies around the Embarcadero tools.
Yeah, you build. I'm a big fan of the Grizzly tools. I talk to people a lot about those. So very cool. Glad you can be here. There's the Grizzly Logger, and here's the Development Manager. And I think actually I have another video from you did earlier in the week on in here as well. I don't see it, but that's fine.
Yeah, my colleague did a blur control for FireMonkey on the FireMonkey series, so that we also put out there. Yeah,
fantastic. Okay. Barry, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, hi, this is Barry McClure at Graybar Systems. We've developed PrintDat, which is a dynamic report writer, which you can create reports from your grids, data sets, queries, etc. in about 5 seconds. And we're going to show you how to do that.
Yeah, so here's the video right here. Create Delphi reports in 5 seconds and 1 line of code. That's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely if you're interested in reporting, check out that video from Barry. Brend, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm MVP from Germany, and I'm working with Delphi for 2 decades or so. Worked for Ball in Germany over a decade, and I'm a program chair of the oldest Delphi conference in the world, the Econ in Germany.
Oh wow, okay, cool. I've been to Econ. That's a great conference.
Yeah, and it's still there.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a while. I need to get back. So, Brent, what was your session on today?
I talked about Spring 4D and mocking. So a little bit about testing.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Spring 4D is a great framework. I know a lot of people really love that one. I have not used it a whole lot. It's one of those things that I find intriguing, but just have not dove into as much as I would like to.
Yeah. You're missing something.
I know. I need to get into it. It's one of the things I really like about Spring 4D, and again, haven't dove into a lot yet, but I've learned a bit about it, is that there's a lot of development practices and methodologies and stuff that are in the larger world, right, of the software development, and Spring 4D brings a lot of those to Delphi. A lot of the things that we hear happening about elsewhere, it's like, oh, you can do those in Delphi as well with Spring 4D. So I really appreciate that. And when people say, hey, can I do this? I'm like, oh, I know that's in Spring 4D. I haven't used it, but I know it's in there, so check it out.
Yes, it's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Chad, Kudzu, you're on.
Microphone? Okay, there we go.
There you are.
Well, I'm Chad Hauer, also known as Kudzu, Indie Interweb Crosstalk. I'm not sure what else to say about that.
Okay. And you've been working really hard on Interweb 17, and you have a video for showing off the Interweb 17 IDE WYSIWYG Designer.
Yes, it's a live HTML designer directly in the Delphi IDE, and it's something that people have been asking for a long time. And so we give you a quick overview of that, as well as the progress and our estimated time of arrival for 17.
Very cool. People talk to me all the time about web solutions with Delphi, and I think that's one of the a really important space right now. So I was excited to see that you're plugging along with Interweb 17, and great to see all the progress there.
Been a long route, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Olga, real quick, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey Jim, hi everybody. Yeah, my name is Olga Flake from Flix Engineering in the States, and in my capacity as the evangelist from TMS Software, I did a session on web application development with TMS Web Core, which is another web framework to do web development in Delphi.
Thank you, Holger. And Jans, real quick, introduce yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Jan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so hello everybody. This year I submitted a small video which shows the speed up of a Delphi algorithm by 200 times. I'm otherwise from a company called Do Research, and I have also been with Delphi for about 20 years. And the cool thing that I wanted to show this year is that you can and you have the opportunity to speed up algorithms in Delphi by are very big factors. So this will be my contribution.
I watched your video. I'm just trying to see where it's at. Is this it here, high performance computing in Delphi?
That's right. Yes.
I watched that. Actually, I might have some questions for you as well. So
yes, very good.
Very cool. Oren, Delphi parser. I see you're online. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
How are you? I'm fine. As you said, I'm from the Delphi parser, code modernization expert. Been with the Delphi ever since. Currently helping a lot of customers all around the world migrating from old legacy Borland Delphi to latest Embarcadero 10.3. That's about it.
Okay, great. That's another area I hear a lot of people coming to me asking about help migrating. Uwe, I see you're on as well.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my name is Uwe Rabe. I'm a Delphi MVP, and I'm working with Delphi since day one, coming from Turbo Pascal, of course. And my session this year is about some Open Tools API technique for decorating the editor view.
I saw your session. I'm not seeing it here.
It's in the top, somewhere in the top.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so anybody that is on here, if you would go ahead and submit, if you have any questions from the videos you watched during the week, or just questions in general about some of the topics or speakers that are here, feel free to submit those questions today for us. Otherwise, I'm going to actually go back and I'm going to ask Jans a question about your MTXVec, the code speeding up. Now, I skimmed through your video a little bit and watched little bits of it. Maybe you can expand on my understanding a little bit. It sounds like it's doing a number of things in there. For example, it's got a parallel library in there as well. Is that correct? So take advantage of multiple cores?
Yes, it has. For example, it's not using Delphi parallel library. We have our own parallel library, which is not so hard on the shared access to memory.
Okay, so it has different memory sharing. Okay, interesting. And now, does it also have like some routines in there that are like compiled to like external libraries it uses, or what's some of the techniques it uses to speed up program execution?
Yes, first of all, you need instructions from which are supported on the latest Intel CPUs. For example, what has been around for quite some time is AVX 512. And then you have this AVX2 and AVX and SSC and so on. These have been all instructions which have been added through over the years to the Intel CPU instruction set. And with each new generation, the speed up by using the new instruction set was about twice. So as you went over 4 generations, that is 2 to 4 already, just from the instruction sets. And this is one part that you have a library which covers all the basic Mac functions, and you stand a chance to accelerate arbitrary algorithm. It means you can accelerate any algorithm even though your compiler does not support and contain those instructions, and does not generate those instructions. And this is possible because of the way that the CPU uses those instructions. It uses them in a vectorized way, which means that it needs to work on an array to be able to achieve a speed up. And since it works on an array, you can create primitives which work on an array, implement all the generic functions. And so if you have a set of functions which cover all the basic math functions, you stand a chance to achieve the nearly optimal algorithm speed as if you would be using any other language which supports the latest instruction set.
So how are you adding those instructions in if they're not supported in the Delphi compiler? Are they external libraries you're using, or?
Yes, it is you calling an external library, not one library, but several of them.
So you deploy those with your application?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, that's what I was curious about. Thank you. This is really interesting. I'm actually, yeah, I'm very interested in this. I'm probably going to talk to product management and say, hey, why don't we have these in our compiler? Okay.
Well, you see, if you are able to deploy an algorithm, or let's say a solution which runs 200 times faster than in an alternative way, this means one server or 200 servers. It's already a whole factory of difference. So, yeah. So if you can manage to do it right, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, it can. Well, and the really interesting thing about this is, in software development, and I'm sure people will argue with me on this, but generally speaking, you have some code that is not speed critical. Most of your code is probably not speed critical, right? It's waiting for user input, very mundane code. But then you have some code that is algorithms that's really performance dependent. And so it's nice actually to have a library like this where I can say, okay, this one bit of code I have to make really fast. And so I'm going to take this and run it through here, optimize it, make advantage of this library so that I can then have that performance advantage. Like you said, if it's running on a server and it's really slow and it's that much faster, you're saving a ton on hardware and performance stuff, or CPU utilization and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a great resource to have when you do have situations where you need to.
Jim, if I may add something. Usually the way people optimize the code is they take a profiler and they find a bottleneck. Right. But if everything in your code is a bottleneck, then you don't see what is the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And then you really need to know how to write the algorithms. You need to know how to write the code in order to be able to develop the feeling for the bottleneck where it could be. So if you are all the time like computing stuff which is not really essential for the performance, all the time doing let's just display one button or let's just display one window, you lose the feeling for how fast it could be. Mm-hmm. Because then when you start to develop, let's say you have a customer which has 100 clients, or they have 1,000 clients, they come people to me and they say we want to deploy in the cloud, they want to deploy on the 50 virtual machines and so on, and what they walk away is one server.
Right.
So it's an enormous investment in resources, in energy, in the cost, if you can manage to write your code in such a way that it actually runs, let's say, making use of what is available today.
Right, yeah. But I would imagine that it would be, if I was to use a profiler, right? And I see, okay, yes, here's where I'm actually doing some work, right? So the rest of my code is just, displaying a grid, right? Or, little bits of pieces and stuff. But then I have one chunk of code that's doing some work, and my profiler is going to say, right here's where you're doing some work. And so then okay, great. And I'll grab your MTX vec and come in here and optimize that so that I can take advantage of the hardware and see a huge performance improvement in my application overall. So
Yes, but it is not that. It's not like that. The way you're not imagining this right.
Okay.
Because if you run this on your own code, and there are chances you are going to see where is the bottleneck, but you will not see that your whole let's say application is sunk in very deep into the inefficiency, so to speak. And
Okay.
even though you will see, look, this thing is fast enough, it's not nearly fast enough as it could have been.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, very cool. Thank you for that. There's a link up here on the screen for anybody that wants more information on MTXVec. And I do have a question here from Perry for Holger on TMS Web Core. Can TMS Web Core PWA, which is something web app? I can't remember.
Progressive.
Progressive web app. Yes, thank you.
Politics. Progressive.
Can TMS Web Core progressive web apps use FMX instead of VCL?
No, that's not how it works. You create basically a VCL-based application in the IDE, and FireMonkey is not supported or part of that. It's always, the application type is always going to be a TMS Web Core application, and TMS decided to make it easy to use a lot of the functionality from the VCL, so you feel right at home. So it's not FireMonkey. But of course, FireMonkey is very close to the VCL, so you still might feel right at home.
Now you do have your TMS F&C components, right? That are
exactly. Yeah. But still, the TMS Web Core application is still going to be a TMS Web Core application and not FireMonkey, or especially the designer. It's not going to be the FireMonkey designer.
Right. So they would be using the TMS Web Core components or the TMS F&C components to build the UI.
Exactly. That's the key there. And the surface, the design surface, very much resembles the VCL design experience.
Okay. Very cool. It's interesting. I see you have reference for jQuery on here. I was just talking to someone the other day about jQuery. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, jQuery is not really the in use anymore." But every website I go to, it's like jQuery is just assumed that it's part of. It's like everything builds on top of jQuery. It feels like anymore. So, yeah, interesting. Actually, let me go ahead and since we're talking about web, Chad, you want to talk real quick about Interweb 17 and I'll bring up your video here and while you're talking so we can just kind of see some of the stuff you've been working on.
What we've been focusing on in this video was the designer itself. And unlike the previous versions of Interweb, it's not simply an XY type thing. You can do more than just drop it on a grid. There's a full HTML editor, and it has its own built-in layouts. If anybody's worked with any of the other tools, the closest I could compare it to would be like WPF. There's stack panels and wrap panels, and everything can be a container. So you can, if you want things to stack on top of each other, you can use a layout for that. If you want to lay it out like a traditional app where you put it at position X, Y, and you can anchor it, you can do that just like you could in the previous Interweb versions. But what you see in the video there is it's a full live HTML editor directly in the browser. And you still see the debug like toolbox and delete. That's going to go away. This is the beta version. But the point here is what you see in the designer is truly what you're going to get in the browser because it's live HTML right there. And it gives you the complete flexibility as well. So you can mix and match. If you want to add new panels or new layouts, if you wanted to make, for instance, a radial layout where you wanted to lay out things in a circle or a semicircle, you can easily do that. And the designer will fully support it as well. Because once you write the controls, it exists everywhere, even including in the designer there.
Very cool. It's really exciting. Like I said, this is something I get people talking to me a lot about, but it seems like everybody's working on it too. So it's just great to see.
And that was a Bootstrap example. The Bootstrap template right there, you can see that that's a mixture of the Interweb controls plus a Bootstrap template. And despite that, it's still completely live in the Delphi IDE there, and you can modify the properties of the controls just like you could in a normal Delphi application.
Very cool. Are you, just out of curiosity, are you using Node.js behind the scenes to do this?
No. We really don't use Node at all. There's only one thing we use Node for. There's a small utility that we use to convert certain things at design time, but for what you see there, Node isn't involved at all.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just got an updated version of Photoshop, and it includes Node.js. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why does it include Node.js? I don't understand.
I don't think we have time for me to talk about Node right now. I mean, it has its uses, but it seems to be a lot of people are using it with not really, they're so in love with JavaScript, they think nodes should go everywhere, and they don't even evaluate when it's the right choice or not. In our case, as I said, we use it in one tiny utility application. It's not needed at runtime. It's used to do a utility function, and it was just an easy way for us to reuse the JavaScript code that we already had.
Okay, cool. There's another question here about this. Says, can this be used on internet as well as intranet sites?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Interweb has always been usable on the internet. The Interweb name really came out of the mid-90s when the product first came out, but everything works fine just on the internet. We have some very large customers. We have some very large banks and some very large government customers that are deploying with 10,000 concurrent sessions, and it's not a problem at all because you can scale it as you need as well. But even a moderate server, without having to load balance or scale, you can handle several thousand connections, no problem.
Okay, and then what is the deployment like? Does it only work on certain types of servers, or what do I need to deploy onto the server in order to make that work?
The deployment is the same as Interweb 14.15, so you can deploy the standalone server if you want, which is a single EXE. You can install it as a service or run it as a UI application. You can deploy it as ISAPI, you can deploy as ASP.NET, or you can deploy as HTTP sys. So right now, if you want the full experience with the Delphi backend, we're still only Windows, or if you want to support Linux and you want the Delphi backend, we work on Wine. We haven't supported the Delphi compiler yet because, with the forcing of Arc and then the removing of Arc, it's still a little bit of a moving target right now. So for us, the Linux, if you want to do Linux, you have two choices. You can either use Wine if you want the full backend, or with 17, you can use it with RAD server or any REST backend as well. We don't believe the experience is quite as seamless, but if you have REST endpoints and you have them running using the Linux compiler, you can use Interweb 17 as just a front-end tool if you want as well. And we actually have some Interweb 17 apps running on our Linux server, but the thing about Interweb 17 is there's a Delphi piece and then there's a non-Delphi piece. So if you want the full experience, which we're calling Interweb front-end plus the back-end, that's what I was talking about, where you're going to have to use Windows or Wine or a Delphi Linux with the REST back-end. But we have some apps that are running, it's just the Interweb 17 front-end running against existing back-ends that aren't ours. So those ones run on Linux just fine.
I spelled it wrong. So besides A2Z.com, Interweb, where should people go to get more information about Interweb?
Well, that's probably the best spot, because from there we have links to everywhere else. And if you scroll down, you'll see the videos. There's a link there for Interweb 17. The most current information on Interweb 17 is on our Facebook page. We also post to our blog as well. We post more frequent posts to the Interweb 17 Facebook page, which is linked from the page you're on right there. Oh, so you're on the blog, but if you click Interweb 17 on the right side, you'll see that there's links to the Facebook page and the Telegram chat and other areas. There's a menu on the right. Move your mouse just a little bit to the right and down. See Interweb 17, right? And it's up now. There.
Oh, okay,
that's the Interweb 17 portal, and yeah, it's got the videos, and it'll have the link to the Facebook page and the blog and those sorts of things from there.
Okay. Yep. All right. Okay, got it. I'll put this link in here for the chat for Doug. So many interesting products here. Absolutely. Honestly, so I started Delphi actually in Delphi 2. A long time before Pascal developer before that. But one of the things that really blew me away when I came into Delphi was just the huge variety and of components and libraries and stuff that were available for Delphi developers. Like whatever you need, somebody's probably already put together a component for it, and that continues to be true today. Doug's asking if you have Docker support with Interweb.
Sorry, I'm back. Docker support? No, we don't have Docker support right now. It's not something I've really looked into too closely to see what would be required to support it or not.
So my understanding of Docker is it should be able to be deployed inside a Docker container. So we just released Docker support in for RAD server for 10.3.3, which gives the ability to deploy it from the IDE into the Docker, which is really cool. And then also some changes to the way RAD server deploys and Interbase deploys.
Certainly with the exe option then, which you can deploy as a service or a UI, then if using that Docker support, I suppose that it probably should work. It's just not something that we've tried or tested yet, but I expect that it should work that way.
Yeah. What about making a real-time chat server?
Well, you can certainly do that. The biggest issue with a real-time chat server is the communication protocols. But with Interweb 17, anybody who's used 14 or 15 or even back as far as Interweb 7 or so knows about a feature we had called partial, and then we integrated Ajax. Interweb 17 has an even better update model, where by default it only updates individual properties, not even whole controls. So what you could easily do is use the async callbacks to pull the server, or use WebSockets. We don't have the native WebSocket support yet, but we'll be building that in as well. And the reason we've put the WebSockets at a lower priority is while WebSockets are really, really cool and definitely the future, if you're trying to use WebSockets on the public internet, you're going to find there's a lot of routers and things that still interfere with it, especially corporate firewalls. So WebSockets today, at least in our experience, have really only been usable where they're deployable. And they're only kind of deployable right now in known networks. And I hope someday that WebSockets will be fully usable on the public internet, but generally they're just not usable yet because of all these firewall and router issues and different networks just blocking WebSockets.
Bernd, if you could real quick just tell us, what does everybody need to know about Spring 4D? Why should everybody be using it?
Okay, there are several topics I think that are interesting in Spring 4D. I focus on the mocking stuff for testing purpose in this session. And I think the other things that are most valuable for the most of developers are the collection interfaces and list interfaces. So I don't like to write this destructor stuff, creating some list and writing a destructor to give it free. And you don't need to do this if you have the collection interfaces used in your class itself. So this is the part I most like. Another part would be multicast events you can use with this library. So you can have multiple event handlers on your code, and the dependency injection container is another interesting stuff in this library, I think. A container like your frameworks for other classes, which injects dependencies in your code. So you don't have to do dependency injection yourself. Yes, I think Nick had the book on it.
Coding with Delphi.
Yeah.
Coding with Delphi. Yeah, what his third book was? Yeah, there it is. Dependency.
Yes. Yeah. This is quite interesting stuff, I think. If you want to follow solid principles designing your code, it is getting nasty in your code if you do the dependency injection on your own the whole time. Constructor injection, dependency injection will blow up your code. If you have a container like this, you can get your dependencies out of your business logic to the root of the application. So this is a nice part of the library.
Yeah. Spring 4D, there's a lot of parts to it. So it's one of those things that you might be using it just for, I can see a situation where someone might be choosing it just for one part or another part, and then not even be tapping into everything else yet. So
there are great parts of it. You can use at different levels. So you can have your normal application and blast it with the collection stuff, and you can iterate over collections in a special way. You're programming like Link in Delphi with these collections, and the dependency injection container would be a completely other stuff, and the testing support would be a complete other stuff. Yeah, so there are several points that are interesting with this library.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess one question is, let's say I'm using Spring4D, and I realize this is beyond the scope of just your session on mocks, but if I'm using Spring4D and I'm using just the collections,
Yes.
Is that like separate from the rest? Are these parts modular so that I'm not using all Spring4D, or am automatically including all Spring4D if I want to use any part of Spring4D?
No. You can just include some of the units you use. So you're always building the whole library. And there are several units you need to use for the injection stuff, and other units you need for the collection stuff. So you don't install any components anyway. That's just classes for the daily programming stuff. So if you're using mocking, it's just one unit Spring mocking you have to include. If you use the collection stuff, it's Spring.collections you're including. So that's different parts you can use. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, Alan, what is the Grizzly Deployment Manager tool? What does that bring to the table for people?
Perfect. Yeah, we created when we were doing a lot of big deployments.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute you and I muted you again. Sorry.
It's okay. A while back, we were trying to figure out how to deploy large amounts of resources, because what we were doing is embedding the Facebook SDKs into Delphi apps, so we could actually have embedded logon capabilities and actually use the SDKs released from Facebook. We were faced with a challenge that, when you deploy to Android or iOS, sometimes you're looking at deploying 150 resources into an exact structure of folders and files on the target machine. And so what we did was we said we needed to come up with a way to easily add things to the deployment manager in Delphi, as well as remove things from the deployment and keep them in sync with changes in the SDK. And so my colleague here at Grizzly and I, we worked on this deployment manager concept where we could run a utility which could manage the dproj of Delphi and add files in bulk or take them away, similar to some of the other IDEs in the marketplace where you have the ability to say every subfolder and every file under a particular configuration in the IDE would be merged into your final target at deployment. Mm-hmm. So that was the main reason for it, and simplifies that job quite a bit. Okay, so where is it? This isn't on your GitHub then, is it? No, it's just a little tool that we have. It is out there we have an installer for it, we link to it from the information that I provided before, but it's not a project. It's not a project of its own. No. Okay, got it. I love this cloud that you guys did in your chat system, but that entire thing is FireMonkey. Really? My colleague here wrote a bunch of GPU accelerated code to do the drawing, but we did a ton of work in FireMonkey, and we reverse engineered the U2 algorithm to actually extract these from people's their favorites and their subscriptions list, so that we could build the videos. Really? That's beautiful. So okay, I see that this is running on a tablet or a phone then. Yeah, it's running on a tablet, and I think it's an iOS tab. Yeah, I think it's an iPad. But what we've specialized over the years is developing applications, and so we still are. We're in the process. We've been working on a project for the last 2 years. It's sort of a virtual classroom application that is sort of, if you've used Zoom before, we're building a Zoom that's entirely in Delphi that's cross-platform, but focuses on the classroom requirements for e-learning. So we've been building some very interesting projects on this, and so we released a lot of our tools in open source to the community so that they could use some of the things that we built. Mm-hmm. I just noticed that the videos are translucent, so I can actually see through them a little bit here. That's so cool. All right. Fantastic. Thank you for is this part of that new project, the video classroom thing, or is this something different here? It's interesting because this particular project actually a customer saw this and approached us to build a next generation virtual classroom solution that did live video and embed the teacher-student relationship. And so this is actually was a piece of that where they could pull in their content and media into their actual classroom environment. And they wanted to do something very similar to this. So we're in the process of building that and going to launch that pretty soon.
Cool. So Doug's asking when that's going to be available.
Oh, our new product.
Yeah.
We're releasing it as a platform as a service, so it's not going to be a product, and so you can sign up for it. This has a full set of APIs, and you can use it to embed and create your own solutions. And we're looking at trying to get it out to the general public around the first quarter of this 2020 here.
Oh wow, very cool.
Yep, and the other thing we put up there was the Cloud Logger, which is a tool that it pays homage to CodeSite, which a lot of us have used over the years, but we didn't have a solution that worked on mobile platforms, didn't work on Linux, and so we created the Cloud Logger and we put it in the Get It package manager for everybody to use. It also demonstrates zero MQ's capabilities as a protocol message broker that works cross-platform, and it's a completely free tool that we offer the community for, doing remote logging for entire development teams. If you've used CodeSite, you'll be kind of familiar with the concept, but it works everywhere on all Delphi platforms. And we have some other specialized features like memory tracking, on any device, so you can see that instead of like trying to mess with the device console logs or the specific logging logic that's on a platform, you can just use a unified approach for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used Cloud Logger because I needed a cross-platform logging thing. I was like, oh, that's right, there's one in here, and get it, and I grabbed it, and it's like, oh, yep. I remember it wasn't immediately obvious to me that I had to set up the server. I'm trying to remember server, and then the logger talks to the server, and the viewer talks to the server. Is that right? Am I describing that right?
That's correct. I think CodeSite did something similar, but it sort of masquerades that from you, and it's a 3-tier solution. But exactly, because we want to be able to connect people through the cloud behind firewalls with one another, and we wanted to have a whole development team share a common broker, so that each team member could send and dispatch their own messages, or a whole customer could dispatch their messages between their Delphi apps and viewers and loggers in remote locations. Just this morning before this meeting, actually, we pushed the source code for all the other modules, the viewer and the logger, which people have asked about before. So okay. You can build the entire project now without any dependencies. The one thing that we're still working on is Android 64 static libraries for zero MQ, and I hope to have something for that pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I was going to ask about the viewer source code, so that's great. So it sounds like we need to get get it updated. Then I'll make sure we get a ticket in for that. Barry, you have the session on building a reporting in 5 seconds.
That's
the video
right.
is longer than 5 seconds. It's a 11-minute long video for 5 seconds. What's the deal? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Go ahead. Tell me about your reporting.
Okay. The reason I created PrintDat was because I hate doing field layouts for reports, for conventional report writers. So with PrintDat, all you have to do is drop a component onto the form and point it to your query, your grid, or whatever you want to print, and it generates the report at runtime. So all the field layouts, column widths are all done for you. You can add titles. You can also print super wide grids. If your grid is, let's say, 1,000 columns across, or you're printing a super large view, PrintDat can print over 100 pages across horizontally.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it can output the report, of course, to the printer, to report viewer. You can also output it to a text file, including all of the line drawing characters and everything. And by having it out to a text file. It's searchable. You can email it to somebody. They just open it up in a text editor like Notepad++, and they can see your report. It's not using graphics, just using pure text, and it's super fast. You can also export it to CSV files, and for example, a single form with a single print.dat component can print any table or all your tables from your database just using this one component.
That's really useful. I did a while back. I was working for a company that did software for juvenile justice probation parole, and we had come into a new contract we got where this company was sending their previously system they had to send these reports off to get done, and it took like a month to generate these reports. And I had developed a similar system to this, because what I made is I just did a thing where it's like, okay, these are just tables. These reports are just like tables. And so I just did something similar. It would just spit out the contents of a grid into a text table that they could then use to build, graphs and stuff from, right? But just being able to write the SQL that could do the joins in less than a month was a huge deal to them.
Exactly, yeah. See, a lot of clients will want, they want to print off a particular table, and they want to do it once or twice. And to do it with a formal report, that's going to take you an hour or so. With print.dat, you can have that built into your application, so you just, select that table and print it or export it.
Oh, cool. That's great. Very useful, because so often that's exactly what you need.
Yeah, it's for quick and dirty reports, or quick and easy reports.
Easy reports, yeah. Because it's nice to be able to build the complicated forms, but you're right. If you just want a grid, then that right there is perfect. And it sounds like it's got a lot of great functions beyond that. So, question here: what about printing from Android or iOS?
We're currently just using VCL. We haven't tried FireMonkey, but theoretically we could if there's enough people who want it.
Okay. Sounds like it should work, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it should work from there, but yeah, if it is tied to VCL, it would need to be modified to work with FireMonkey. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Let's see here. Uwe, you want to tell us real quick? I'm sorry, I totally am spacing now. What your session was? It was, there it is. Decorating editor view with, you want to tell us real quick about this?
Yeah, actually the decorating of the editor view is part of the code coverage plugin I show in a few sequences in this session. I wrote it about a year ago, just as a leisure project, while I watched some clean code video from Bob Martin, and he showed some tool for his Java IDE that did this code coverage, and I thought, how can I do this the same for Delphi? And so I started this, and this turned out like some investigation how to work with the tools API, and the decorating the editor with one of it. So actually it shows how to draw additional information inside the code view and control how to have it, to keep it in sync when editing is done.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, actually, you have, I'm probably going to say that you have a lot of great resources here that I don't think people are aware about are available from you. I've discovered a number of these I found really useful on your website here. Project Magician is really, really cool thing. I've recommended that a few people that were having some issues where they were having trouble. I guess I'm thinking of the dproj normalizer, which now includes Project Magician. Now includes that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
dproj
correct.
normalizer.
Yeah, the dproj normalizer is where it all started. And then I added this Steech project splitter. That is a tool that can extract user-specific data out of the project file so that it doesn't interfere with other users' data, like command line parameters for the application or something else. And both of these tools are combined into the Project Magician and some other functionalities added there.
Yeah. And then also, I see you have MMX, it's over here. You have that, oops, that's just, no, I'm downloading XML. I don't want to download XML. Because that's also available from you, right? The model maker?
Yeah, but it's another website. It's mmx-delphi.de.
I can type, we can get there. Yep, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very happy to see that you'd taken this over because this is a great tool, and then I think you're a great person to be taking over it. So I'm very excited about that as well. Yeah, so okay, this is really cool. Actually, I was just talking to someone today that was wanting to know about how to do some more of this sort of thing here. So I'm glad to see you put this session in here to show how to do this sort of thing, because they're wanting to do, if I remember correctly, wanting to do markup so that you could write, or markdown, right? So they could write markdown in the code editor and have it rendered in the code editor. So that would be
okay. Yeah, nice.
Very cool. All right. If you have any questions for Uwe, you can go and put them in here for Uwe. Otherwise, we're going to go on here and Oren, real quick. Delphi parser. You have I know you have a special promo going on right now, right?
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, almost fell asleep.
Okay, so do you have a special promo going on right now for Delphi parser, right?
Yeah, yeah. What can you tell you about the Delphi parser that hasn't spoken before? We provide services for legacy companies working with the Ball and Delphi and the older version of Delphi, and helping them migrate to the latest Delphi. Mainly for the data access models, all about BDE and stuff, and all the way through VCL, UniGUI, and other issues, depending the migration, Unicode and stuff, and databases. A lot of work done here to automatically migrate the code, running the parser over millions of lines of code. It's an easy task for the Delphi parser, not very possible for a human developer or team of developers. So what we've done is, with the Delphi parser, the new edition is creating a Delphi parser linker that actually it knows how to read the Delphi code, and basing all the rules you give it, do the job. Here in the demo, you can see how we can quickly, with I think 10 minutes, migrate the most famous marine venture running, working on with the BDE, migrated from Paradox to MS SQL, from BDE to FireDuck. It looks very easy and very straightforward, easily done, with no much changes, because most of if you look on the database-oriented application, most of it is really done easily. We're dealing with the more complex issues, but the Delphi parser can handle most of it. You can see that the Delphi parser can run on over millions of lines of code with minutes. Here it's this very simple task, but lately we've got a a lot of feedback from our customers. But we're running, we reduce the price for the licenses, and actually have released a free edition up to 1 million lines of code, just to simulate at the client side that it works.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of comments saying it really works, and thanks for all the effort. And what we provide mainly is, rather than providing pre-built tools, is provide complete services to major companies with lots of work to be done. So here you can see it's very straightforward.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's about it. What I actually want to say that we've done a lot of work with the code dependencies. We have a new tool of the code dependencies that analyze the code. It's really been a real project that we've run through the past 2 years. That to actually have a tool that analyzes the code, and you can get a deep insight into the code. I know there's a lot of tools that does this, but they does it most likely statistically. But this is a real parser, a really full-blown parser, and we have a free version that you can run and get an insight of your code. It's a very good tool for spaghetti code and getting the handle of what's been used and how much in the code.
So I have a question with that. It's doing static code analysis. Does it like help you recognize like security issues and stuff like that in your code?
Yeah, it's not a statistically analysis. It's a real drill down analysis of the code. It's you can get hold of your code and see what's being used and where. Like the remove users issues that is running to a lot of customers. You can see if you want to replace a set of tools, set of components, you can see using the code dependencies tool and see what's being used and where. It's more analysis and not migration. It's a side of the migration. It's a very big deal of migrating code, getting to see what's been used in old code. You know, in legacy code, when you get a hold of millions of lines of code that you haven't, you want the one who wrote them. It's a big issue. Sure. And while running the code dependencies tool, you can see what's been used and where, and it's open your eyes to see and to grasp the whole code. And you can. It's very good tool for when I get to new projects and I run this tool and suddenly I understand the code. Millions of lines of code with thousands of files. I get an insight and see what's it's done there and where, and it's very useful tool. And it has also a lot of issues besides security issues. You can see where there are SQL queries, and you can see where there's hard-coded issues, and it's very helpful tool, and it's free to use. The free edition is up to 1 million lines of code. It's mostly enough, but we have license editions that we will slash the prices. You can see in the last Black Friday, we've slashed the prices by 70%.
Oh, wow.
That's for those who wanted to get a hold of the license, although it's been hacked. I tell you a little secret, it's been hacked last year. And I'm very surprised that it's been hacked, because someone actually had the time to hack it. But
a couple questions here for you. Does it work with both BDE tables and queries? So, for example, if you're using tables and they want to migrate that over.
Yeah, it does. It does. If it's very customizable. It can work with any data access component, and it can even transfer simple lines of code that doesn't have to do with anything. If you want to make a change, you just look for object within the whole inheritance, and look for member, look for simple code, look for variable, look for parameters. It can go inside queries, and within the DFM, it can get a hold of a lot of things in there. We also provide customized services for specific requirements from customers. This kind of issue, but where you pointing at the C++ builder, it's currently not for public use, but
Okay,
we provide, we have a customer that does take our services.
And the other question here is, so I saw you have a product here for VCL to UniGUI. Do you have one for converting from VCL to FireMonkey?
We're thinking of that. Currently, we provide the VCL to UniGUI migration wizard with the script. It's about 3,000 lines of code of UniGUI. VCL to UniGUI, and most of our customers take this as a starter and migrate it to whatever they want to. Okay. We in the past year we've made a big project about skinning off other VCLs and other components that were made obsolete, and a lot of redesigning, a lot of issues with IDPIs. We have a lot of requests to build the scripts, but we're currently very busy to write them ourselves. But the free tool and the free scripts, the open script solution provides a lot of joy, as I said, to developers to write their own scripts. Right. This is our main goal, to provide the software with the scripts so they can do whatever they want. Okay. We also have a SDK with open source, so we can drill down within the code of the wizard, and build new rules and new capabilities for the Delphi parser specifically for your tool. Or if you're a software provider, you can take this and run it to several projects and several customers.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move on here because it's top of the hour, and I got a couple more things here. So Barry just sent me a link that if you go to Gray, he has a discount going on here. So just like Delphi Parser does, there's a discount for PrintDat right now as well. It was, what was it, 50% off discount for print version for Black Friday. So go to Graybar Sys and check that out if you're interested in PrintDat, which it does sound like quite a useful utility for printing grids. Holger, I wanted to circle back around to you real quick and see if you had anything you wanted to expand on before we wrap up.
Yeah, because you want to wrap up, I might just say for TMS Web, there is a video online with all the new features of the latest version, because there have been quite some improvements component-wise and like encryption-wise. You can use form inheritance now, you can use frames, so there have been a lot of improvements. Usually, this is also something I mentioned in the video, it's version 1.3 that was just released, but exactly that one. It could be version 2 or version 3 already. There's so many features. In that video, we mentioned 22 new features. We also have notification support, something that a lot of customers have been asking for, so that you can subscribe to web pages and send out notifications to your customers.
So will the videos be available on the YouTube Embarcadero channel? So right now, there's a question just came in here. The playlist is public, and so everybody can access the playlist. Each of the videos are unlisted, and the reason is we found in the past that if we release a large amount of videos all at once, then it's overwhelming and people miss things. So what we're doing now is we have a schedule. We're releasing 1 or 2 videos a day. So the videos will each become public slowly over time, in random order most likely, but that is just to make it easier for people to discover and consume things, because YouTube will send notifications to people when videos become available. But the playlist is publicly available. You can access all the videos now, but they do not become public until they become public for their specific thing. So if you do want to access a video, you can access them all from the playlist. Otherwise, they will become public later on, where then everybody that's subscribed will get a notification. Actually, if you subscribe and then ring the bell, it's something YouTube changed. So you want to make sure you have this bell selected to ring all, and then whenever we post a new video, you'll get a notification so you can go out and watch it. But very cool. TMS of course looks so exciting. Something I've used a little bit, but not enough, and need to do more. I unfortunately find I very rarely have time to spend more than like a couple weeks on a project, because I get pulled off onto something else. But definitely up on my list of things I want to get more familiar with. So
yeah, you just saw you also have online demonstrations for everything, so not only video, also.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's something I've been frustrated with. I've looked at other things in the past that are like, oh yeah, this works on the web, and like, well, show me. And I'm like, oh no, download it. I'm like, no, just show me. So
yeah, that's exactly the reason why we do it, because people always claim, oh, it looks good in your designer, but does it look the same way on the web? And or does it work on the web as you advertise it? Especially and it's not always easy to build up demonstrations, especially if there's databases involved with the back end and all that kind of stuff. So, or for example, we have Google Maps components where you need to set up your own API keys. So this way you can really have a look at all the features without putting a lot of work in it to see if your special needs are being covered.
Yep. Okay. Fantastic. Let's see. I'm just making sure if any of our tech partner panelists, if any of you have something you want to add real quick, just let me know. I'm just making sure I got through everybody. There was a lot. Just so you know, this is not represent everybody that was on here. If you look through the videos here, here's dleaker for finding memory leaks, REM objects SDK, REM object data abstract. Let's see, real-time chat information or application using DevArt Secure Bridge. So Pascal Analyzer. There's lots of other stuff that we didn't cover today. So definitely do check out the playlist if you haven't already to find things on there. Chad, real quick, I'll circle back with you. When is the I know you talked about this, the plan as far as Interweb 17 becoming available? Is there a beta coming soon, or what can we look forward to on that?
Well, we've had betas for well over a year, actually. We've been restricting them mostly to internal customers. We've been expanding it more and more, especially lately.
Okay.
The designer was really kind of a big issue. The runtime has been complete for quite a while, and the previous designer we had wasn't really a WYSIWYG, and we felt it was pretty easy to develop, but the beta testers were not really grabbing onto the old designer. So we've diverted with the current designer, and we talk about this in the video, but right now we're targeting early 2020, and we should be pretty good on that. And I know we're really late, and the reason, and we discussed this in the video too, is we expanded the scope of 17 quite a bit. We didn't want to ship really kind of, just an update. This is a massive step forward, and we wanted to make sure that 17.0 really is a big bang. And originally the designer that I showed you there was slated for 17.1, and we moved it up to 17.0. So that impacted the schedule quite a bit as well. But everything is pretty much complete except for the designer, which we're making good progress on, and the hardest parts of the designer are already done. So now it's down to, control manipulation and things as far as adding controls and moving them between layouts, which we're working on. And that's just purely mechanical and user interface. And since the designer itself is actually an Interweb 17 app, that designer running inside of Delphi is actually another Interweb 17 embedded app itself. So from here on out, it's pretty easy. We just need some time to hook up all the mechanics. And then the second thing is we have jQuery and data tables and Bootstrap and all the popular frameworks are pretty much supported already, but we haven't gotten every last little property of every control. We went through and basically said, okay, let's make sure the Bootstrap controls work and we get the libraries loading, all that kind of stuff. And we added the Bootstrap controls, but we didn't fill in every property of every control. So we have to go back and add in a lot of the extended properties and things based on user feedback. As far as public beta, we're not exactly sure when we'll open it to a public beta or not. We continue to invite our user base in. So if you're an existing Interweb user and you have a current subscription, you can contact us and we'll consider you for the beta program. We've been pretty tight on it because we need to make sure that the feedback we're getting is good feedback, and customers are at varying levels. And we found in the past, if we add customers maybe who are not quite as advanced, we spend a lot of time trying to reproduce their bugs, and sometimes they're not even our bugs. So we've tried to keep it limited to developers we know that are more advanced so that we don't end up on a lot of wild goose chases. So if you're a paid customer, you can contact us. We'll consider adding you to the beta. And as far as the public beta, I don't have a date on that, but we're looking at public release in early 2020 right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things that's tricky because as far as who you're including in your beta, because you want a wide swath diversity of users, but at the same time, your users need to be, or the beta testers need to be savvy enough to work with the beta. So yeah, it's tricky. I know what you mean. So, and yeah. The other thing also is as software developers, this is something I've discovered about myself and other software developers I talk to, is typically we have very high expectations of the software we use, but at the same time, we need to be understanding because we've released software and we know what that can be like. So yeah, the deadlines change because yeah, software is, what did you say? It was an art that fights back?
Yeah, exactly. Software programming is an art form that fights back.
Exactly, it's an art form that fights back. It's so true, so true. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you to all of our tech partner panelists for being part of this, for the great work you guys do in providing these components and libraries and such to the community and in preparing the sessions for today. So I appreciate it and appreciate your time. Thank you so much, everybody, and we will talk to you later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right.